Hello, BookTube. I was just down here in the lower level where most of our library is, and I thought people are always doing a bookshelf tour, and I really rarely do that. I think I've done a bookshelf tour in my main study upstairs, but not here in the back room, the lower level. And since I've been reading this morning some books on Christian spirituality, and I came down here to look for a book. I came down here to get this book on the Philokalia, the complete text, complied by St. Nikodimos of the Holy Mountain and St. Makarios of Corinth. This is the first volume. I came down here to get this because I wanted to read, it was quoted in the book I'm reading upstairs, The Ocean of Light by Martin Laird. I showed that to you. He keeps quoting in here from this volume on Saint Kallistos of Philokalia on spiritual knowledge and discrimination, 100 texts. I bought this. This is a very famous text in Eastern Orthodoxy. There's other volumes in this series. Let me get this. Show these to you. See, there's these other volumes. I think I've shown these. This is volume 2 of the Philokalia. This is volume 3 and volume 4. I bought these when we were living in Houston, Texas, and I was doing my minister internship. As I've mentioned in past videos, when we were living in Houston, Texas, I really got into Christian spirituality. I got into reading Thomas Merton, Eastern Orthodox. I got into all kinds of spiritual text and reading on Christian spirituality. So that's what I came down here for. So then I thought, hey, I would just show you some of my Christian spirituality books. I don't know if you're really interested in that, but that's part of what's in this section of the library. I'm trying to keep these in order. So yeah, I took out like in this section, this pile of books. I'll give you an example of what's in these pile of books. This is The Vision of God. This is by a very famous Eastern Orthodox theologian, Valimor Lasky. This is a book I showed recently by F.E. Kirk, The Vision of God. This is a brief introduction to Orthodox spirituality by Metropolitan of Nepakast Erotheus. This is translated by Efi Movarich. In the Image and Likeness of God by Valimor Lasky. This is a Penguin classic. Prayers and Meditations of Saint Anselm with the Prolegomena. This is On the Art of Meditation by Goldsmith. Women in the Middle Ages, by Francis and Joseph Giles. The Lives of Real Women in a Vibrant Age of Transition. The Contemplative Experience, Erotic Love and Spiritual Union by Joseph Chugan. Things like that are in this pile here. The Garden of Paradise. This is by John Arnott. He was a very famous pietist. This is his other writings by Jonathan Arnott, True Christianity and the Classics of Western Spirituality. And then you have Spirituality of the Christian East by Timaeus Spalix. So, and then these are the writings of Emil Swedenborg, Heaven and Hell, Heaven and Its Wonders in Hell. And then there's Julian of Narwick, Revelations of Divine Love, Roll, The Fire of Love. And here's my favorite of all books, The Cloud of Unknowing and Other Works. So these are all kept here. Also, you have Richard of St. Victor on the Trinity, translated by Robin Angelica. He was a 13th, I think he was if I remember correct, he was a Cistercian, if I remember correctly. It doesn't say back here what order he was in, but I think he was a Cistercian monk. Anyway, those are here. And up here are all books on history of Christian spirituality, like Christian spirituality, origins, the 12th century, Christian spirituality in high Middle Ages and Reformation. I've shown all these books on the spirituality a while back, on the history of Christian spirituality. I don't think I've shown, here you have the Life of Saint Teresa of Avila by herself. I just showed this to you. And I showed this book recently, Introducing Medieval Biblical Interpretation, The Senses in Scripture, Pre-Modern Exegesis by Ian Christopher Levy. This is another famous book on medieval exegesis, The Love of Learning and Desire for God, A Study of Monastic Culture by Jean Lequec. So these I have shown to you. And then you have, like, on this shelf, Evangelism in the Early Church by Michael Green. And then you have Asceticism in the New Testament, edited by Leif V. Vetch and Vincent L. Wimbush. Asceticism and the New Testament. And then there's Brethren of the Common Life by Dr. Albert Hyman. It's a very famous book on the medieval exegesis, the study of the Bible in the Middle Ages by Burroughs Smiley. Then Power, Gender, and Christian Mysticism by Grace M. Jansen. Here's the book Thomas Merton, The Spiritual Master, The Essential Writings, edited with introduction by Lawrence G. Cunningham. I'm really into Thomas Merton. I have been for years. Then you have Studies in Early Christianity by Francis Bovon. And then there's Bernard of Clairvaux, Between Cult and Heresy by Adrian H. Briderdo. The Left Hand of God, a biography of the Holy Spirit by Aldous Hull. The Monk's Confession, the Memoirs of Gerbert of Nochin. This is translated with an introduction by Paul G. Arberbrat. The Reformation of the 12th Century by Giles Constantine. This is Spiritual Theology, a systematic study of the Christian life by Simon Chan. Protestant Spiritual Exercises, Theology, History, and Practice by Joseph D. Driscoll. The Middle Ages. This is by Morris Bishop. This is like a history of the Middle Ages. And then you have History of the Church from Christ to Constantine by Eusebius. And then there's The End of Ancient Christianity by R.A. Marcus. And then this is the oldest book I have. This book I shown, The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. I've had this since the early 70s. I used to read this when I was hitchhiking up and down the West Coast when I was like in 12th grade, 11th grade in high school, back in the late 60s. And then I bought myself a new edition. This one's all beat up, but I've shown those. Here is Practicing the Presence of God. It's all worn out. The Rule of Saint Benedict, translated with introduction by Anthony Mizell and M. L. del Mistro. St. Augustine, Christian Doctrine, translated by D.W. Robinson Jr. This is a very famous book by St. Augustine, Christian Doctrine. And then you have The Orthodox Church, a clear and detailed introduction to the Orthodox Church written for the non-Orthodox, as well for Orthodox Christians who wish to know more about their own tradition by Timothy Ware. And then you have The Ways of Imperfection, Exploration of Christian Spirituality by Simon Tugwell. And then this famous book, this is by English Quaker, The Journal and Life of Travels of John Woolman, very famous Quaker. A Popular History of the Reformation by Philip Hughes. This is Hilary of Ponters and St. Martin of Tours by John Gibson Cozen. This is a biography of two very famous early church fathers. Aquinas. It's a little biography of Thomas Aquinas by F.C. Campleston. And then you have a book on Franciscan mysticism. The Meaning of Prayer by Frosdick, who's a very famous 20th century liberal. And then you have by John Henry Cardinal Newman, The Idea of the University. And then there's a book here by Chesterton, G.E.H. Chesterton, Orthodoxy. Now there's a whole series behind here is all my series on the classics of Western spirituality, like this. This is The Names of Christ by Louis de Leon. I'm not going to pull all these out because I think I showed a video a while back of my classics of Western spirituality, so I'm not going to show those because it would just be repetitious. So these are kind of books I have, just a little sampling of what I have in my Christian spirituality selection of books. Like I said, I'm a student of church history, early church history, medieval, Eastern Orthodoxy, books like that. Anglican, the Anglican tradition, and things like that. So those are kind of books that I have here on this shelf. I showed this, The Concise History of the Catholic Church by Thomas Bolkenkotter. So that's it. I thought I'd show you a little sampling of books that I have here in the back room on Christian church history, Christian spirituality, and yeah, not much else to show. So yeah, that's it. I came down here to get the Philokalia, Volume 1, and I'll close to go look at this. Until next time, bye.